Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Lovett Learning. I'm Gavin Lovett, and today we are talking about how to find, or rather write, an equation for a circle when you're given the endpoints of the diameter. So, let's imagine we have a question that says, write the equation for a circle with endpoints of the diameter at -1, 6 and 4, 2. So the first thing you want to do is figure out which equations you need. So you're going to need the midpoint equation, which is c equals x plus 1, or I'm sorry, x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, comma, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So that will give us a coordinate, an actual point on the graph, our midpoint. And then the second equation you need is the standard form of a circle, which is x minus h squared plus y minus h squared equals r squared, where r is the radius. All right, so the first thing we want to do is find our midpoint. So let me go back up here real quick and see what our coordinates are. And I'm just going to write them right here for us. So it was -1, 6 and 4, 2. All right, so in order to find the midpoint, we want to use this equation. Again, c equals x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So we're going to take our two x coordinates, which are -1 plus 4. We're going to divide that by 2. And then we're going to take, let's do first, -1, so 6 plus 4. And let me go ahead and put a comma here. Matter of fact, I'm going to do it like this. I'll say c equals, let me put the whole thing. So you guys, excuse me. Sorry. So you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. So it looks the same as the equation we have up there, divided by 2 with our bracket. So our x1 was -1, our x2 is 4, our y1 is 6, and our y2 is actually 2. I wrote 4 again by mistake. Our y2 is 2. All right, so we can solve this. We've got c equals -1 plus 4 is going to be 3. So 3 over 2 is our answer there. And 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 over 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our coordinate is 3/2, 4. Okay, and for simplicity's sake, I'm actually going to make this x a 5. Make this x a 5. That way this becomes 4 over 2, or just 2, just to make the math easier. So, and matter of fact, well, you guys see it. So it was -1 plus 5 equals 4, divided by 2 equals 2. 6 plus 2 is 8, divided by 2 equals 4. So that's how we get our coordinates 2, 4. So that's our midpoint, all right? Now, what you want to do is take that midpoint, step 3. Let me scroll down real quick. There we are. Step 3, using your midpoint coordinate, you're going to plug it into the standard form of a circle to find the radius. All right. So standard form of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus h squared equals r squared. Now, our midpoint is actually in the form of hk, and I've got typos all over the place today. I'm sorry, that's y minus k. So our midpoint is in the form hk. Our x coordinate is h, our y coordinate is k. So we're going to use the midpoint and plug it into our standard form equation to find the radius. So you can use any x that's on the circle. They've given us some x's. They'll give you an x in any problem like this. So we can use -1, 6. Or I'm sorry, we can use -1 as the x and 6 as the y. So you can use any coordinate. Now I'll show you what I mean by that. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug in our midpoint. So we've got x minus 2. Again, the midpoint is in the form hk. So our h is our x coordinate squared plus y minus our k coordinate would be the y, 4 squared equals r squared, okay? Now you can use any coordinate and plug it in for the actual x and y remaining in the equation. So now we're going to say -1 minus 2 squared plus, and the y for the -1 is a 6. So that's 6 minus 4 squared equals r squared. Great. Now, move this down just a little bit. All right, now we want to simplify. So -1 minus 2 is going to be -3 squared plus 6 minus 4 is 2. So 2 squared equals r squared. Great. So last thing we need to do is go ahead and square those. -3 squared would be 9. I'll actually just go over here a little bit. Continuing over here, so we've got 9 plus 2 squared is 4 equals r squared. And this is very important. Add those up, you get 13. That is not your radius. That is your radius squared. So you need to take the square root of that to get your radius. So we've got, whoops. So we add these up, we get 13 equals r squared, which means the square root of 13, or radical 13, which I actually don't know how to do on a keyboard. Should probably figure that out. So I'm just going to say rad. Actually, I'm going to say square root of 13 equals r. So that means the square root. So the square root of 13 equals r, which we could compute in our calculators or whatever to find the actual number, but we really don't need to. So now the last thing you're going to do, now that you've found your radius, now that you've found your midpoint, last thing you want to do is use the circle standard form to replace h, k, and r. So if we scroll back up real quick, the question is asking you, and questions like these will ask you to write an equation for a circle with endpoints of the diameter -1, 6, and 4, 2. So if we get to here and we find what our radius is, that's not the answer. If we get to here and say, okay, well, we can plug in our midpoint here, and we could have x minus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals r squared. That's not the answer either, because that r has to be an actual value. So when you're writing an equation for something, generally x and y are the only variables that are allowed to be actual variables. What I mean by that is, like, standard form of a linear equation or of a line is y equals mx plus b. But the m and the b are actual values, right? The m being a slope, b being a y-intercept. So the y and the x are the only variables that are actually variables. So if we look back at this equation, there's 5 variables here. That means 3 of them have to have actual values. All right, so step 4, we're going to replace the h, k, and r so that they have actual values. All right, so we're going to take our standard form equation, which was x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And now we're just going to replace all of the h, k, and r's with our values that we found. So x can stay the same. X minus our h was 2 squared plus y minus our k, which was 4 squared equals, and we found out that our r was square root of 13. And that's our equation. X minus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals radical 13. So hopefully this made sense to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it and it helped you out. If it did, please do leave a like and a comment. And of course, if you're still confused, leave a comment down below or email me. Check out lovettlearning.com. You can comment there and I'll be happy to help you out. I'm Gavin Lovett with lovettlearning.com. I will see you next time. Take care.